NFL teams are tasked with difficult choices all the time. It's not simply a matter of who's better, this guy or that guy. It's not simply a matter of who's better, Dak Prescott or Andy Dalton. It's a matter of difficult choices. It's a matter of salary cap management. So would you rather have Dak Prescott at $30 million a year or Andy Dalton at $18 million a year? It's Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. You can always catch me 3 to 6 Eastern on all those same television and radio channels. You can give me a call and answer that question. Dak Prescott at $30 million or Andy Dalton at $18 million. 888-729-3776. I'll tell you my answer and why I think the question is absolutely absurd. I'll also give you my rankings just to show you where I think these two guys rank among the NFL quarterbacks coming up in just a moment here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. But it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. There is so much hype, so much expectation, and ready to run on the offensive side of the ball. They are ready to rock and roll, and they're ready to overcome all those years of cellar-dwelling disappointment in Cleveland. Everybody's on the hype train, and everybody's ready to go. But there's some new quotes coming out of GQ magazine, an interview with Odell Beckham Jr. that I think should give every Browns fan a bit of concern. Some quotes that should have us tapping the brakes on that hype train for just one moment. Odell Beckham Jr. sat down with Gentleman's Quarterly, GQ magazine, and he gave a long, wide-ranging interview. And I got to tell you something. Odell's a pretty likable dude. I think Odell is introspective. I think he's trying. I think it's best illustrated with some of the questions that come at the end of this interview. The interviewer asked Odell Beckham Jr., how do you feel when so many people speculate about your sexuality? There have been publications who've said, look at Odell Beckham Jr., look at this, look at that. Is he gay? Is he not gay? And Odell Beckham Jr.'s response to that is one of confidence. Well, I don't care. It doesn't offend me if they think that I am. Odell Beckham Jr. says that he's not, but almost considered playing into the idea that people were accusing him of being gay. Didn't consider it offensive. I like that about Odell Beckham Jr. He's confident. He's confident in who he is. He knows what is a slur and what is not. Odell Beckham Jr. is not here, it seems in those moments, to be judged by outside opinions. And yet, in every other place in this interview, Odell is the opposite. It's fascinating. It comes to his personal life and you get this sense of confidence about who he is. But when it comes to the football field, Odell Beckham Jr. is less the master of his destiny and more a feather in the wind. He comes off more as someone who is a victim in every situation he has encountered in terms of the NFL. He's constantly referencing they, and whether or not something is fair. Now, granted, the interviewer puts it to him on several occasions in terms of, are you happy here or are you happy there? Were you happy in New York? Were you happy in Cleveland? Rank your happiness. But Odell consistently kind of brings up concepts of, well, they don't treat me right, and this situation wasn't fair to me. He talks about the NFL in general, vague business terms. He talks about the New York Giants, talks about the New York Giants GM. He talks about the way Rob Gronkowski is treated and viewed in his partying ways and not Odell Beckham Jr. He talks about whether or not athletes get to have a voice and whether or not it's fair when they speak out on things. He talks about Chris Carter. He talks about Ray Lewis. And he talks about anyone who has somehow put Odell in a situation of criticism or less than ideal circumstances. When you read this interview, to me, Odell, in every aspect, when it comes to football, seems less a master of his destiny and more a log floating down a river of opinion and judgment. And yet Booger McFarland, ESPN's NFL analyst, was on Get Up this morning, and he said, I think it's going to all be okay for Odell in Cleveland. Listen.
It'll go well, Greeny, as long as Baker Mayfield can get him the football and Freddie Kitchens and the offense can work well and they win. All great players have one thing in common, Greeny. They want to win. Some of them care about numbers, but mostly they want to win. And as long as they are winning and he is contributing to the winning process, Odell will be fine. Because great players think if they can't win and they're not contributing, then they need to help the team win. That's the way great players think.
But even in that explanation by Booger McFarland this morning on Get Up, Odell is a creature of the circumstance. If they are winning, if the Browns are going well, if they're executing, if Baker's getting Odell the ball, everything will go fine. Look, every single one of us, me included, we have our ups and downs. We have our hard times. We have our good times, things in our career when they're going poorly, and people at work who are the worst. People that are morons and somehow in charge of your outcome. People who judge, people who gossip, people who talk. We all encounter it. But the thing about it, what I'm trying to tell you is Odell seems directed by that stuff. He seems to be, as I said, the log floating along the river instead of the rock in the middle of it parting the waters. You're never going to escape all of that nonsense. You're never going to escape all that crap. It's only a matter of whether or not it directs you. And this is the quote that I think should concern every Cleveland Browns fan. This is the one that tells me Odell is not the rock in the middle of the river, but rather floating along it. He was asked this: "Hey, Odell, you were an all-district basketball player. Golf Digest called your swing beautiful, yet you choose to play pro football, arguably the most oppressive sport when it comes to individuality. Do you ever think about how life would have been with a different sport?" And Odell's response: "All the time, bro. Literally every day. Especially on those days I'm down. I could have done any sport in the world. Not many people know. But I used to talk to my mom and I'd be like, 'Ma, if I was done doing this now, would you still be proud of me?' And this was a couple of years ago, about 2 or 3 years ago." So let's stop right there for a moment. Odell, on a regular basis, he admits, thinks about doing something different. Thinks about different paths, asking his mother if he's still proud of him, if she's still proud of him. All of the nonsense, the judgment, the criticism, the circumstances that confront Odell, and his response is not to allow all of that to break around him, but in fact, to have him considering a different line of work. Could Odell really have been Odell Beckham playing soccer or basketball? Could he have been a professional golfer? We can leave that up to a debate for another day, Mike. Obviously, probably not. Nobody jumps from sport to sport that easily. Although I did say a few months ago on First Take that if I did have one athlete I wanted to put up against the Martians when they came down and they wouldn't tell us the game they were going to play, but they said if you lose the game, we destroy the planet, I do nominate Odell Beckham Jr. I do nominate him. One of the most athletic, versatile, talented human beings on this earth, but that doesn't mean you get to just go be a pro in something else. But more concerning than that, to me, for Browns fans, is every day, thinking about walking away? The interviewer went on, "No way. You really thought about retiring for real?" And here's Odell again. 24 years old, just off it. To love something so much to a place where it's my everything and to watch it be tainted or all kinds of things, be in the middle of it, like it hurt me to my soul. It'd be like loving someone and putting them on such a level to where life is about them and you love that person through anything, through the good, the bad, and to watch them do something so heinous and vulgar. Something just so like almost unforgivable. You still love them, but it's like, wow. What did football do to you, Odell? How did football hurt you? How did professional football, the NFL, do something so heinous and vulgar? What I'm telling you is this: Odell seems to be manipulated, moved, directed by these situations, by these outside influences, by this judgment. And what I'm telling you is, while we all encounter that, if it's willing to push you out of the game, if it has the ability to make you consider on a daily basis going somewhere else, Odell, it's not going anywhere. The criticism, the judgment, the bad circumstances, they're not going anywhere. They're not going away. Only question is, are you? And if you're not, and for the sake of Cleveland Browns fans, and anybody that loves to watch you play, I hope you're not, You need to be the rock in the river, not the log. That's Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart, everything for less. All right, let's move forward. One of the things we've talked about for some time on the Will Cain Show, and this is Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. today, is in the NFL, you never want to find yourself paying average quarterback play top dollar. You never want to see yourself paying a quarterback in the 15, 16, 17 type of range, top 10, top 5 money. And yet we see it over and over again in the NFL. A guy named Jason McIntyre, he founded a website called The Big Lead. He tweeted out a question this weekend that I found pretty fascinating. He said, I would rather have Andy Dalton at $18 to $20 million or Marcus Mariota at $20 to $22 million a year than Dak Prescott at $30 million a year. I think that is absurd because I do not think Dak Prescott is average. But I do think it's worth laying out his thought process. Like I said, for some time, we have realized that is the problem. Paying average quarterbacks like top quarterbacks. We've never seen the NFL pay quarterbacks the way it has over the last several years. Percentage of salary cap. Did you know that going back to 1994, the highest percentage of salary cap dedicated to the quarterback position was 13%, and that was the San Francisco 49ers paying Steve Young back in 1994. No Super Bowl winners since then had spent that much on one quarterback, more than 13, 14% of their salary cap. And year after year, we're seeing the NFL push the limits of that rule. Russell Wilson now makes something like 18, 19% of the salary cap. Ben Roethlisberger's up there. Aaron Rodgers is up there. Quarterback after quarterback are making record number of dollars and pushing that salary cap percentage to unseen places. So is the NFL making a mistake, giving too much money to the quarterback, sacrificing their position elsewhere on the field? Well, let's say this. If you have an exception, if you have a great quarterback, do what it takes to keep him. Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, I get that. But the mistake is made when you start paying Ryan Tannehill, like the Miami Dolphins did at the time, as one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Or Joe Flacco, as the Baltimore Ravens did at one point in time as one of the top quarterbacks in the league. That's where you get into a mistake, paying average quarterbacks like they're great. And yet team after team is doing this. We had Dan Graziano, ESPN NFL insider, here on the Stephen A. Smith show the other day with Will Cain. And he said, it's because they feel like there's a cliff, there's a drop-off. Once you get to a certain number, it's great unknown, man. We can't go into that area. We can't go from Kirk Cousins into the realm of who's our next quarterback. It's too scary. It's not right. And yet, you have to ask yourself, am I getting more than replacement value? Am I getting more from Dak at $30 million than I would from Andy Dalton or Marcus Mariota at $20 million? For me, the answer is yes. But I get the debate. I get the point. At some point, when you are an average, move on. Go to the Andy Daltons, the Marcus Mariotas, and draft until you get great. The goal is to get great. Is Dak Prescott going to be great? Here's what Max Kellerman said on First Take.
As Russell Wilson was, as Tom Brady was. He's a game manager so far who's big on third down and good in the playoffs. That's a hell of a thing to be. But he's something less than a great quarterback. And you're paying him based on what you think he may develop into, but at $36 million a year, when your quarterback and your running back are up at the same time and demanding each to be paid at the top of their position, it puts the team in a very bad situation because you can't afford to lose Dak, but I also don't think you can afford to pay him $36 million a year.
I think the Dallas Cowboys can, and I think they should, because I do not believe Dak Prescott is an average quarterback. I'll tell you what I think here. These are my top 20 or so quarterbacks. It's a lot of names. It's going to be a lot of numbers, but I'm going to lay it out for you because I think it illustrates where you make the trade, where you go, I'm not paying an average quarterback $30 million when I can get something close to him for $20 million. It doesn't apply to me for Dak Prescott and Andy Dalton, but you'll see where it does. First of all, and I'll work through these fairly quickly. Here's your 15 to 20. These are quarterbacks ranked 15 to 20 in my estimation. Counting down from backwards. 20, Marcus Mariota. 19, Andy Dalton. 18, Cam Newton. 17, Mitch Trubisky, and 16, Kirk Cousins. These quarterbacks, some of these are in that average range where I think teams should have hard conversations with themselves about replacement value. Should the Minnesota Vikings give Kirk Cousins another deal, or can they get some percentage of him for much cheaper? That's a situation, that's a question they have to answer very soon. Same thing for the Carolina Panthers and Cam Newton. Same thing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Jameis Winston. Now, from 11 to 15, keep counting down. 15, Baker Mayfield, and on his way up. 14, Deshaun Watson. 13, Matt Stafford. 12, Jared Goff. And 11, Carson Wentz. Goff is the one guy I have questions about here. I probably should rank Goff higher. But I'm still needing to know that he is much more than the Sean McVay system. I'm still needing to see him complete the full in, year out quarterbacking play to convince me. I'm sorry, maybe that's personal. Maybe I'm holding too much against him from his first year. But I recognize it. I think Jared Goff, if there's one guy on my list that I want to rank higher, it is Jared Goff. Now 6 to 10 in reverse order. At 10, Dak Prescott. I have him higher than almost everybody, and I think he's going to prove it this year. That he deserves this ranking, that he is this ranking. We're talking about as much winning as highest completion percentage, highest winning percentage of any quarterback in history over his first 3 years. And number 9, Matt Ryan. Number 8, Phillip Rivers. Number 7, Russell Wilson. And number 6, Andrew Luck. And then finally, to round out your top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, in my estimation, number 5, Ben Roethlisberger. Number 4, Drew Brees. Number 3, Aaron Rodgers. Number 2, Patrick Mahomes. And number 1, until further notice, Tom Brady. That's your top 20 quarterbacks in my estimation. I do not believe Dak Prescott is average. That's why I do not believe, as Jason McIntyre, the founder of the Big Lead, laid out, I do not believe the Cowboys should make the gamble of, can I get from Andy Dalton or Marcus Mariota at $20 million what I would expect from Dak Prescott at $30 million. I think Dak Prescott is an above average quarterback, and I think that he will be a top 10 great quarterback, as Max Kellerman doubted just a moment ago. And yet, here's what Louis Riddick, ESPN's NFL front office insider, said the Cowboys should do with Dak.
Look, what's the next best alternative if you don't sign him, if you don't keep him happy, if you do get into a franchise tag type of scenario year after year? That's not something you put your franchise quarterback through. This is something that you work out and you take care of. Now, obviously, it's a situation where they cannot seem to agree on what is fair market value for him. Dak is really using the comparables of the guys who have come before him, most notably a guy like Carson Wentz, who is in his own division, who I'm sure he believes from a statistical perspective, and he has a case to make for this, that he deserves to be paid on par with him. Now, if the Cowboys felt the same way, wouldn't this deal be done already? Yeah. I mean, Jerry Jones has already said, this is our guy. This is someone who we want to lock up long term, but they haven't been able to agree on it. That's where it has to start. After that, there's going to be some debate from some people as to where they should go after that with the money, but I think we know where we should go.
I think Dak Prescott has taken too many sacks. I think he's been late in the throwing window way too often. And I also think Dak Prescott has been a victim of a completely constipated and uncreative offense under Scott Linehan for years. I'm excited to see him under Kellen Moore. I've wanted to see him under a more creative offensive mind. And I believe that Dak Prescott has the character, the leadership, and the winning abilities. Steps up when it's needed to be not just top 10, but in the upper echelon of quarterbacks in this league. And I think the Dallas Cowboys should realize that's much more than a Marcus Mariota or Andy Dalton, and pay Dak Prescott. The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch and save pay an average of $699 less per year. Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. You can normally catch me 3 to 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Let's hit up the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Let's go to Matt in New York. What's up, Matt?
Hey, Will, how's it going?
What's up, man?
I was seeing about your Odell Beckham comments, and I just think he's a big baby. If he can't take the criticism in New York, he can't make it anywhere. I think the criticism will be more on him in Cleveland than anywhere else, especially because he's surrounded by the stars, Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, those guys. I think that he won't make it in Cleveland. He'll be a total bust.
All right, thanks for the call, man. I think the saying goes the other way. If you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Not if you can't make it in New York, you can't make it anywhere. The idea being New York is the hardest place to make it. So it would stand to reason there are some people that don't make it in New York and make it other places. But I do agree with you. It seems to be criticism, other people's opinions, outside circumstances, influences around him have too much bearing on Odell Beckham Jr. I don't think that is a hater speaking. I think that is someone reading his comments, watching his behavior, and wanting the best for him. I can tell you something, as someone who is in the public eye at a much, much smaller level than Odell Beckham Jr., it never stops. Hatred, disappointment, disrespect, people discounting you. The only constant is you, what you think of you, and how you respond to that. And I do believe to be great, to reach your full potential, you're going to have to be the rock in the middle of the river. All right, let's take one more. Let's go to Cale in Missouri. What's up, Cale? You're on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain.
Hey, man, I just want to say, first of all, I love you. I love listening to your show, listen to it every day at work. But, man, the only thing I really disagree on you ever is with the Cowboys.
Okay.
So I get what you're saying. You think Dak Prescott is more of an elite quarterback. I think he is a top-tier game manager at best. And when you have a game manager, you're never gonna get as far. So if you have a game manager, spend less money, spend it on Andy Dalton, get rid of Zeke, rebuild.
Hey, Cale, let me ask you a question. When you use the term game manager, and I'm familiar with it, right? So we're all familiar with it. It usually means something like a guy who doesn't lose games for you but doesn't win them either, right?
Yes and no. Yeah, I get what you're getting at. Yes.
What am I getting at?
Well, it's just hard to get at because you have a more of a biased opinion towards your team. I totally get that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, Cale, like, if you know what I'm getting at, you know what I'm about to say doesn't really reflect bias or opinion. Thanks for the call, man. I appreciate it. It's just facts. Dak Prescott is among the league leaders in his tenure in the NFL among game-winning drives and fourth-quarter comebacks. Doesn't sound like a game manager to me. Dak Prescott over his first 3 years has a historical rate of winning. Doesn't sound like a game manager to me. I didn't say he was elite yet. I said he was above average, good, and on his way to great. Elite is top 3. Not there. Not yet. And I pay him over Andy Dalton. All right, your calls. Phone lines are lit up. Plus, I'm going to give you a couple of teams in the NFL that I think we should be very concerned about regression. Good last year. Really good. But there's one stat out there that shows these teams could be headed for a fall. That's coming up on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain filling in on ESPN Radio.
Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by Barbasol. For the past 100 years, generations of men have trusted Barbasol shaving cream to deliver a close, comfortable shave. You're looking good, America. You're shaving with Barbasol.
And who's going to bring what to the table to see how they all mesh? Nobody knows, man. How's it going to mesh? You're talking about sacrifice? And then perhaps most concerning of all, I'm definitely excited about Kevin for sure. Oh, how's that going to land with Kyrie? Is there favoritism, even realistic favoritism? There should be favoritism. Does Kyrie know that? Does Kyrie believe that? Kyrie is a risk. We have to acknowledge it. And Ramona Shelburne, ESPN's NBA Insider, has talked about it.
If you are a cynic, you could argue that Kyrie Irving, who did not work and play well with a young team that had a nice culture in Boston, that team could have some chemistry issues before Kevin ever sets foot on a court, before he ever comes back. I don't know. I really don't. I mean, it's like Kevin's going to be gone a whole year. Is he even going to be there? Or is he going to be rehabbing in New York? Is he going to go to Germany? Is he? I mean, we don't how much are they even going to be together that whole first?
Like, who are the neighbors? What are the local taxes like? What's the school district like? You need to ask yourself tough questions. Acknowledge the risks out there. In the end, you'd still buy the home. But you got to go through the analysis. You got to be real with yourself. And the Nets and the Lakers need to be real about the risks they just took on. Is AD there for only 1 year? Will Kyrie mess up the chemistry in Brooklyn? Can Kyrie and KD figure out leadership? For my money, the biggest risk was taken by Los Angeles and taking on AD for only 1 year, and that is because of the price paid. Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and picks into the future. Think about the downside. If AD doesn't stay, if the most pessimistic outcomes do come true, that franchise is handicapped for far into the future. The price paid was much bigger. If all the pessimism and worst case scenarios come true in the Nets, they still have a young base of talent to work around. The NFL will not ban Chiefs wide receiver Tyreek Hill.
Why can't the league be more transparent about how they got to this point?
So what the league found, what it came across, clearly must have been persuasive enough for the league not to hand out any discipline here.
When you have a limited scheme of information, you can only make your decisions based on that, and that, in many ways, limits what the NFL can do.
What is it? How much is enough to be guilty? How much is enough for punishment?
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
There's one stat out there that should give a couple of fan bases a little bit of pause, some nervousness. There's one stat that says these three teams might take a step back in the NFL in 2019. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. You can normally catch me 3 to 6 Eastern on all those same television and radio channels. I'm going to lay out for you what those teams are in just a moment. First, let me hit up a few phone calls like Dan in Jersey. What's up, Dan?
Hey, Will, what's going on, bud? Enjoying the show.
Thank you. What's up?
Listen, I want to get in on this quarterback conversation a little bit. I'm totally in belief that you're a total homer when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott. But I understand I'm very close to the situation in Tampa. I'm a big fan of the Buccaneers, and I think it really comes down to management grabbing a hold of some of these guys that you're still uncertain in their third and fourth year before you get to that fifth-year contract, in terms of them locking them up at a number that's manageable for both sides. The truth of the matter is in their second and third year, both quarterbacks were uncertain of if they would be getting that next contract from their teams. Possibly they go somewhere else and they have to back someone up for $8 million a year. So you settle in at that number around 20, around 22 million, that you can still make cap room in other areas of your team that you need to improve, because neither one of those players is going to reach that elite level without the talent around.
And what are those two players you're talking about?
I'm talking about Dak Prescott and Jameis Winston. Okay, Dak Prescott is definitely an elite game manager, but the truth of the matter is if the scouting combine happened tomorrow and you put all the quarterbacks in the NFL into that scouting combine, the league executives would tend to lean towards the more skilled players. Okay, there's executives out there that would go and take Jameis Winston because of his upside over Dak Prescott and his ability to manage a game.
Okay, I got you, Dan. And thus shows the absurdity of the entire enterprise. What is the point in the end? Is the point to win, or is the point to fire a football as hard and as fast you can into a punching bag? That was the famous competition that Dak Prescott just got drilled by. I think it was by Derek Carr, the accuracy competition where you threw it down and it's one of those, boxing punching bags, and Dak couldn't hit it. Is the point to win the combine or to win football games? Now, here's the thing, Dan. I agree with your analysis, and I appreciate the call. I have agreed, and I have laid it out on the Will Cain Show for over a year now. Do not get caught paying average quarterbacks great salaries, because then you hamstring your entire roster. Jameis Winston and Dak Prescott are in the same class like Batman and Robin are superheroes. Yeah, technically they both are, but they're not even close. Jameis Winston and Dak Prescott aren't on the same planet. And I don't care. I think you're right, Dan, that Jameis Winston would blow more scouts away. And I'm going to tell you something else. I think you're right that if you polled league executives, Dak Prescott would perform poorly. And I think you're right. If there was a combine right now and teams evaluated Dak versus other quarterbacks, he would go late compared to most quarterbacks across the NFL. And thus shows the absurdity of the entire enterprise. The point is to win games. The point is to win. And Dak Prescott is doing that at a level that Jameis Winston has never even considered, never sniffed. Now, you want to tell me it's because of system? A system what? That just got Scott Linehan fired? You want to tell me it's because of an offensive line that people say is now like 5th best in the NFL? You want to tell me it's because other skill positions, as though other teams don't have great skill players? As though the Steelers or the Falcons or the Saints don't have great skill players? What exactly is it that Dak Prescott has beyond Ezekiel Elliott that is far and above what anybody else could comprehend in hoping to play quarterback in the NFL? The bottom line is this. We're all prisoners to preconception. Dak was taken in the 4th round, so he's always a 4th-round quarterback in your mind. It does not matter that he's won his division 2 out of 3 years, been to the playoffs twice, beat Carson Wentz, for example, head-to-head, been tops of the league in completion percentage, game-winning drives, 4th-quarter comebacks. It doesn't matter because your opinion's made up. But I will tell you this. By the end of this season, either you're going to be a man who calls in and says, you know what, you were right, or I'll never hear from you again, because I'll be right by the end of the season. One more. Kevin in Jersey. What's up, Kevin? You're on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call.
Hold on now, Kevin. Something's going on. That sounds not good.
Thank you for taking my call.
There we go.
I wanted to make a comment on the quarterback situation here. I'm a huge Dallas Cowboy fan, and I'm telling you that Prescott is not the quarterback people think that he is. I heard what you were saying, but he's blessed to be in a system with a great offensive line. He can't get the ball down the field. He can't win games without our running back. So, I mean, I guess we're all entitled to our opinions, but to me, he's not worth $30 million. He's not even worth $20 million. I would take Andy Dalton over him any day of the week.
Well, thank the good, ever-loving Lord, Kevin, that you're not in charge of the Dallas Cowboys. I am going to tonight. I'll be on my knees tonight saying thank you that Kevin from Jersey is not calling the shots in Dallas. Andy Dalton over Dak Prescott any day of the week. Man, listen, I appreciate people that call in and tell me I'm a homer. And I understand. I'm honest about my fandom. I've never been anything but honest with you. And I want you to be as well. We're all fans. In other words, why would you be listening if you weren't a fan of something, right? The Giants, the Jets, the Rams, the Eagles, God forbid. You're a fan. And I am as well. But these facts aren't fans. These facts are real. I'm going to tell you something, boys. The future's on my side. It's going to come in. I promise you. The Stephen A. Smith Show is brought to you by mycomputercareer.edu, training for a better life. Every year, there is one stat in the NFL that is highly, highly variable. Changes from year in, year out. One team, one year's great, the next year they're not. And this stat has a huge bearing on how the season goes for their team. The stat is takeaways. Turnover differential, but also more specifically how often you take the ball away from the other team. People always point out, what happened to the Jaguars? One year it's AFC Championship game, the next year it's 5-11. You know what happened to the Jaguars? Takeaways. When they went 10-6 and made it to the AFC Championship game, the Jags took the ball away at incredible numbers, 33 takeaways in 2017. Last year, that number dropped in half. That number dropped to 17. And their record dropped to 5-11. It's not just the Jags. You can see it happen in 2017. Here are the teams that went from high turnover, high takeaway teams to the next year not, and their record followed suit. The Jags. How about the Lions? The Lions had 32 takeaways in 2017. That dropped to 14. Their record dropped from 9-7 to 6-10. Even the Eagles. In 2017, their Super Bowl year, the Eagles had 31 takeaways. Again, dropped to 17 the next year, and the Eagles' record drops to 9-7. Takeaway, variability, year in, year out, has such a huge bearing on how your season goes. And it's not a stat you can count on. It's not like quarterback play. It's not like offensive line play. It's not like rushing yards. Oh, that team's good at running the ball, and they're going to be that way for quite some time. It's not something you can count on. You can say, oh, well, you know what we're good at? And year in, year out go, that's going to impact our record. No. It changes. So who were the teams in 2018 that were really good, out-indexing on takeaways? And then by probability, come back to the average this year. Which teams could see their records impacted by not being able to sustain this level of takeaways? Here are two of those teams. Last year, the Houston Texans had 29 takeaways. They were plus 13 in turnover differential. They were fourth best in the league in takeaways. Can the Houston Texans count on that happening again? Can they carry that into this next season? I'll tell you this, in 2017, they weren't near this good. So which one's the real Texans? Which one is the one that's going to be able to sustain them? Because if it doesn't stay at 29, what happens with their record? How about everybody's preseason favorite? How about the Cleveland Browns? Man, do you know in 2017, the Cleveland Browns only had 6 takeaways? Their turnover differential was negative 28. And then last year, the Browns jumped up to 31 takeaways. 31. Now, we're all on the Browns hype train, right? We all love them. We love Baker Mayfield. Odell's going to be amazing. Jarvis Landry. This is going to be something else. Even that they've added talent to the defense. So we got to acknowledge that they've, on paper, brought players in that should have a very positive impact. Can they keep that kind of takeaway rate going? Because if not, are they going to live up to our expectations and our hype? And yet there's one team that took the ball away more than the Browns last year. They were second best. There's one team that took the ball away more. In fact, this team took the ball away at a greater rate than the Jags did in 2017. There's one team that you have to ask yourself, can they keep this up? Because if not, their record is going to drop like a rock. I'll lay out what that team is when we come back on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain filling in on ESPN Radio. The satisfying crunch of Nature Valley Crunchy Bars can keep your family going, which means more outside fun for you. And with whole grain oats and real delicious honey, it's really tasty too. Nature Valley Oats and Honey Crunch Bars.
Barbasol making razors? Well, that's a no-brainer. Try the Barbasol Ultra 6 Plus razor today.
The Big 12 has decided that the horns down sign will be penalized if done in an intimidating fashion. You guys have all seen this when the Texas Longhorns play, or actually when they don't play sometimes. You'll see people in the crowd, and increasingly you'll see players on the field take the hook 'em horn sign that everybody does who's affiliated with the University of Texas, pinky and forefinger up, making a hook 'em horns and pointing it down. It's a sign of disrespect. It's right there in the face of Longhorns fans and alumni, both of which I am. And apparently college football has had enough of it. First, Greg Burks, the Big 12's coordinator of officials, said that this, and I'm quoting, like any play, there is a degree. Who it's directed at, if they do it in their bench area, we're not going to look at it. It would be like any other celebration foul. So it has to be like any foul we have. Does it rise to the level we need to deal with that? It's a hot topic. I know people want us to be definitive on that, but it's like any touchdown celebration. Is it directed at an opponent or just a celebration with your teammates? So it's like pornography then. Or at least how the Supreme Court try to define obscenity and pornography. I can't tell you what it is, but I know it when I see it. So an official in the Big 12 can't tell you when horns down isn't a penalty, but he'll know it when he sees it. It's a degree thing. Did you do it in an intimidating fashion? Were you trying to show up your opponent? Or are you just having fun? Well, that's weak. It's weak sauce. And it's a gray area, and all it's going to invite is debate and controversy. Some ref decides either is or isn't. It's over the line or it isn't. It's intimidating or it's fun and celebratory. Get out of here with that, man. You can't tell the difference. And that's why you shouldn't be penalizing communication anyway. Look, I'm a Longhorn alumni and a Longhorn fan. Deal with it. Don't deal in victimhood. Don't deal in the false power of being offended.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on The Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio, coast to coast. Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. You can normally catch me 3 to 6 Eastern. I told you there's one stat, highly variable, changes from year to year, and this stat dictates the outcome of the season for teams. The stat is takeaways. Pointed out, the Jaguars went from the AFC Championship game to 5-11 because they cut their takeaways in half. It's just not something you can count on year to year. So who was up there in takeaways in 2018 that needs to be scared about regression in 2019? The Texans, the Browns, the Rams were also up there as well, but the Rams have been up there now for 2 years. If there's any team that's been consistent in takeaways, it has been the Rams. But the Texans and the Browns both took the ball away unlike they had done in the past. Can they keep it up? Because if not, their records could fall back. But there's one team that took the ball away more than any other. One team that took the ball away more than the Jaguars did back in 2017. And one team that needs to be careful about regression in 2019. The Chicago Bears are prime for a regression. The Chicago Bears took the ball away 36 times last year. And as Bill Barnwell points out on ESPN.com, 27 of those were interceptions. That resulted in a plus 12 turnover differential. Again, this is not something you can count on year in, year out. So that Bears defense that, granted, has Khalil Mack now putting pressure on quarterbacks, forcing them into bad decisions. That Bears defense is going to need to keep up this turnover differential. If it's not, they could be a candidate to be your Jacksonville Jaguars of 2019, your worst or your first place division finisher that falls out of the playoffs. It happens all too often in the NFL. All right, let's hit up the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Let's go to Rich in Virginia. What's up, Rich? You're with Will Cain.
Hey, yeah, you said you could pay a guy like Dak the $30 million and you would, take that risk. I agree with the callers saying that, he's more of a game manager. But perfect example, the Mariota in that game Monday night, 21, 29 yards, 240 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dak was 21 to 31. 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. You were just talking about takeaway. That's the main thing that cost him that game. And mind you, Zeke only had 17 carries for 61 yards, so that game was pretty much put on Dak. The QBR for Mariota, 70.3. QBR for Dak was 24.2. Thanks for the call, Mark.
You're thanking yourself for the call? Thanks, Rich. Here's the thing. You're right. Mariota got Dak in that game. I was there. I was there in Dallas that night. I thought it was a complete failure of coaching from Jason Garrett. It wasn't Dak's best game. Mariota got him. Does that mean Mariota's better than him? You want to bring up 1 interception and tell me that's what it's all about? Go ahead. Go to Pro Football Reference. We can do this together. Dak's got one of the lowest interception ratios in the NFL over his career. A rookie year that set Tom Brady-ian level of records for not turning the ball over. Man, you got 1 game. Does that mean Marcus Mariota is better than Dak Prescott? Want to put into context what their careers have been like? How much winning they both have done? Playoff appearances? Or we don't lay on 1 game and 1 interception. Dak Prescott is far and away better than Marcus Mariota. In my estimation, I have him 10th in the league. I laid out my quarterback rankings earlier. Marcus Mariota, by the way, came in at 21st. Jameis Winston at 20th. And Dak Prescott at 10th. Don't pay average quarterbacks great money, but Dak's not average. I got more coming up.
The Stephen A. Smith Show starts right now.
Everybody feels wronged. The Lakers feel wronged. The Raptors feel wronged. Everybody feels played by Kawhi Leonard. But what did they expect? He was looking out for number 1. He was doing business the way business is done, and he owed nobody anything. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. You can normally catch me 3 to 6 Eastern on all those same television and radio channels. So, Reports suggest that the Lakers and the Raptors are a little upset over the way Kawhi Leonard handled his free agency, that he let it play out over a week's time. Time that the Lakers and the Raptors perhaps could have been spending signing other free agents and not waiting and hoping and holding out that they end up with Kawhi Leonard. But what did Kawhi Leonard owe the Lakers and Raptors? How did he do this wrong? If he was truly open to any of these teams, if he wasn't purposely trying to screw up their business, what did Kawhi Leonard do wrong? Look, I'm big on do the right thing, not just the minimum. Do the right thing, not just what's required of you. But I'm not sure how in any way Kawhi Leonard stepped over the line here. Yeah, he played out his free agency a little bit slower than everybody else. It's odd how everybody knows right when free agency opens, immediately where they're going. It almost makes you think, hey, have they been talking? Have they been tampering before this all started? So Kawhi didn't know right away. Maybe he should have known. Maybe in your estimation or my estimation, what did he need to know about the Raptors? He already knew everything. He could tell them if they were in or out. But he didn't know. And he waited and he played out free agency. And he ended up with the Clippers. So what is it that the Lakers feel so played over? How do they feel used? What do they feel upset about? Did they expect him to play this on their timeline? Here's Stephen A. Smith on Get Up.
Jerry West, Steve Ballmer, Doc Rivers, Lawrence Frank, and those boys have shown you that the Clippers are not playing games. They're a legitimate threat. They are a team to be reckoned with and to pay attention to, and they put you on notice. And so, as far as I'm concerned, Kawhi Leonard has done nothing wrong. The Lakers might have been feeling themselves a little bit. And to me, you have legitimate reason to feel yourself if you got LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You shouldn't be griping about anything.
You know, it came up on First Take about a week or two ago when I was filling in for Stephen A. and Max. I was hanging out with Ryan Hollins, and the question came up, who runs L.A., Lakers or the Clippers? And I said, neither. Kawhi Leonard runs L.A. Now, that upset a lot of people because they misinterpret what I said, or they're not listening to the specific words coming out of my mouth. But I'm not saying that there are more Clippers fans in L.A. than there are Lakers fans. I'm not saying that all of a sudden the Clippers are the most popular team in LA, the biggest brand in Southern California, the more valuable sports franchise. I'm not saying any of that when I say who runs LA. I'm saying that Kawhi Leonard runs LA because he had every team in that market waiting on him. He had the future of those franchises in the palm of his hands. Everybody wanted Kawhi Leonard, and it was up to him where he ended up. He ran the process. He ran the situation. Kawhi Leonard owns LA. And if you had any doubt about that and you thought I was wrong, all I have to give you is this headline, this story right now to show you that it was true. The Lakers feel played by Kawhi Leonard. Who's in charge? Who's running the situation? Not the person feeling played. The player. Kawhi Leonard runs LA. And he did it in a fashion that I think is perfectly fine. When you're a free agent, you can take your time. You don't owe it to anybody to make a decision on their schedule. He wasn't being unethical. He wasn't being rude. He was taking a slower approach, almost like J.B. Holmes playing in the Open Championship. A much slower approach than Brooks Koepka. A much slower approach than did Kevin Durant in picking Brooklyn. And that's fine. He wanted to make his decision more deliberately. And ultimately, he wanted to get Paul George to the Clippers. I don't know what the Raptors and the Lakers are upset about today. That's the risk you play when you play free agency. You give up the opportunity to sign other free agents when you go all in on one you think you can get. And as Stephen A. pointed out, I guess when you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, you got a pretty good hand. You think you have a strong play to get Kawhi Leonard. But you didn't. You lost. And that's the risk, and that's the game you play. It's not Kawhi's fault that it didn't work out for you. Hey, really quickly here, I'm sitting here watching on my television screens here in the studio. There's ESPN up, and I've seen so many times. In fact, it's not even on ESPN. This is on The View. This is on local news. This is everywhere. How many times have you seen this clip of Tom Brady jumping off a cliff with his 6-year-old daughter? Over and over and over we've seen this clip. I got to tell you, Tom did it all wrong. All wrong. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show. Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. I know I have some experience in this. This, helping / encouraging children to jump off of high ledges into water. The thing is, when Tom held his daughter's hand, he had to know that's going to pull her off balance. it's going to make her do a belly flop or a side flop, right? No. He did it all wrong. And I get it. He's trying to get her clear of the rocks, right? That's the risk here. We're going to jump together, right? Yes, but I got to make sure she jumps far enough out to clear any rocks. So you grab the hand, you think that's going to work. But, you weigh 100 more pounds or more. You're going to pull them off base. They're going to do a face plant on the water. And Tom's daughter did. So here's how you do it. Trust me, again, I have experience with this. Stood up at the top of the cliff, realized if we hold hands, if we don't time our jump exactly right, this thing's going to pull him into a belly flop because I have sons. Or B, I'm heavier, I'm going to descend at a higher rate, and it's going to also pull him off of balance as well. So what do? Well, what you do is you grab him up under the arms and you kind of toss jump at the same time. So you clear the rocks, right? You clear so they don't hit. You want to get far enough out. So you hold them by the chest, and then when you get out into the air, then you give them a little shove away from your body so you don't land together. That's the way you clear the rocks. They land feet first in the water. You don't run into each other, and you got to do it together. I mean, the downside is it's kind of like you threw your kid off the cliff, but there's too much upside to worry about that. Okay, landing on their feet, not belly flopping, not on their face. Too much upside to worry about that you just threw your kid off the cliff. They said they wanted to jump, right? So, and then they wanted to jump together. That's how you do it. I respect what Tom was trying to do. He was trying to clear the rocks, but he did pull her into a belly flop. So next time, Tommy, if I may, grab and throw. It's just as good as a jump. Hey, you need seats to a game? Download the Vivid Seats app and enter the promo code CHAMPS at checkout to get 10% off your first order. Don't buy just any seat. Get a Vivid seat. Let's go to Whitaker for a moment in North Carolina. What's up, Whitaker? You're on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain.
How you doing, Will Cain? I'm a huge fan. Watch First Take, your show, Stephen A. Smith Show all the time. And I heard some absolute, as Stephen A. would say, blasphemy in your first hour from two callers about Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota being better than Dak Prescott.
Thank you, Whitaker.
I mean, I was listening. I've been waiting on the
Don't
call.
forget Andy Dalton.
My God.
Don't forget Andy Dalton. They said Andy Dalton too.
I didn't even hear that one. That's even more blasphemy than Marcus and Jameis. But I wanted to get to a different QB, and I'm not going to compare him to Dak because this would actually be a very tough comparison given where this QB has gone the last 3 years. And I am from North Carolina, so I'm a big Panthers fan. And I wanted to talk about Cam Newton because recently I've been seeing him more on covers of GQ, more about fashion in Paris, and a little bit about rehabilitation in football. But I wanted to talk about where the Panthers are going to go because I also liked what you said about takeaway. Because in 2015, when the Panthers went 15-1, had the stellar season, went all the way to Super Bowl, Cam Newton MVP, we had 39 takeaways in the regular season, and then 11 more in the postseason to total to 50.
I'm telling you.
And that's, we did have Josh Norman. Luke Kuechly was in his prime. But Cam Newton has fallen off a lot. And that could be given to some injuries, maybe some lost players, lack of a wide receiver core. But last year was very bad for us Panthers fans. And I want to hear what you think where the Panthers should go, because a lot of the conversation is turned to where do we go with Cam Newton?
Yep.
Has the Cam Newton train come to a stop, or is it just at a pit stop and we're going to keep going from here? Because
I got
for me, I personally think I love Cam Newton to death. But this is the last year. I mean, it's
all right.
3 years.
I got you, Whitaker. Thanks for the call, man. Here's what I would say. I ranked my quarterbacks in that first hour. I gave you 20-1. The purpose of that experiment was to show you don't pay average quarterback play great top dollar. That's where you don't want to get in the NFL. My contention is Dak Prescott is not, and soon it will be obvious to everybody, not an average quarterback. But Cam Newton has a resume that's now been in, and as you said, over several years. And I'll give you this, his completion percentage went up this year. Cam Newton, I have ranked at 18th. And Cam Newton is soon going to have a contract extension. And Cam Newton is going to want to get paid big. And you're going to have the conversation. How much of Cam and his production can we get for a much cheaper alternative? Can we go paying the Marcus Mariota types and draft. So in other words, do you give Cam Newton $32 million a year, or do you sign Marcus Mariota for $20 and draft? I think the answer with Dak is you pay Dak. I believe he's not average. I believe Cam right now is in that average range. Let's go to the Monday Morning Quarterbacks, Andy Benoit, who joins me now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. What's up, Andy?
Hey, Will, how are you?
I'm good. Let me get you right off the bat there on what I was just talking about. You and I, Andy, a year ago, we did this. We talked about the replaceability of quarterbacks, those in the middle tiers, and that you don't want to get caught there, right? At least you don't want to get caught there paying too much. Do you think the Panthers could soon be in that situation with Cam Newton when he needs an extension? Is he a well above average quarterback that you should be paying?
I think he has well above average attributes, and I think the results have been pretty clear that when you add them all together, though, he comes out pretty average. He's a high and low QB. The problem, and what's interesting, we have to remember that 2015 season where they went to the Super Bowl, he was the legitimate MVP of the NFL. So that's every other year, though, he has been a very erratic passer. He's going to miss 5 or 6 throws a game. I think the Panthers are willing to live with that because he gives them such a unique dimension to their running game. But we've seen where it takes them. They don't have a great receiving core around them. I understand that. But the reality is it's hard to play quarterback in the NFL if you can't always put the ball where you want to put the ball. So you have to play around that. Newton does give you some options to play around that, but I know there are plenty of teams in the league that would say, hey, we're not playing around that. That's too big of a deal. That's throwing the football.
Mm-hmm. The MMQB's Andy Benoit here on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain filling in. You can normally catch me 3 to 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. All right, Andy, what about the other quarterback? And that is Dak Prescott. This jumps off of Jason McIntyre, the founder of the Big Lead, saying he'd rather give Andy Dalton $20 million than Dak Prescott $30 million. Now, listen. It seems like every caller disagrees with me. It seems like, Andy, every caller thinks Dak is Joe Flacco, Marcus Mariota. He's in that range. I don't think so. And you and I have talked about in the past, but as you know, and people will say, I'm a true believer, and other people say, well, you're a homer. But whatever it may be, I truly believe Dak has what it is to be a top 10 quarterback. I think he's already on the verge of top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And to me, that means pay him. What say you?
The more I think about Dak Prescott, the more fascinated and divided I become within myself because I think there's some enigmatic issues with him. I don't think he is the strongest arm QB, and I don't think he's a precision accuracy passer. And yet there are throws you see here and there, like that 90-yard touchdown he had to Amari Cooper on Thanksgiving last year, where he makes some big-time throws. So he has it in him. He's also willing to play from within the pocket, which is not common with mobile QBs necessarily. And that's a very positive trait, and that makes you a more consistent offense as a whole. And I also think he's not an anticipation passer. He's more comfortable when he sees it and then throws it, which might be why the Cowboys have run so many isolation routes over the years. We don't know. That's the other part, Will, is their system really has not been modernized. And does that change this year with Kellen Moore? Because if you put Prescott in a Rams-style offense, or even what the Bengals will be doing with Dalton this year, that is a totally different brand of football than what he's been playing in Dallas, and it asks very different things of the QB. And sometimes I look at Prescott, I don't think he reads the field very aggressively or confidently before the snap. Other times, though, I see him and they get in these spread empty formations where the QB has no choice but to read the field before the snap, and he looks like a field general. He's in total command. So it's almost like the more responsibility you give him, the better he plays, but he's not guaranteed to play well if you just give him normal conditions.
Like Andy.
That's where I'm at with Dak Prescott.
Like that last week of the season against the Giants, where they seemingly let the reins off of Dak Prescott, and he lit it up against the Giants. Talk about throws, that throw to win the game to Cole Beasley in the back of the end zone. I don't know, man. I see it, and I certainly see the intangibles here. With the MMQB's Andy Benoit here on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain. I want to talk about some other things besides quarterback play. The caller, right before you brought up the Carolina Panthers in 2015 and their takeaways. I brought this up earlier, and Bill Barnwell wrote about it as well. The Chicago Bears led the league in takeaways last year. Now, that's not the kind of stat you can count on, Andy. It usually doesn't go that way year in, year out. So do you see some kind of regression for the Bears this year?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And you have to look at the approach to defense. So remember the Rex Ryan Jets and the Darrelle Revis years, where that was maybe the best defense in the NFL. that defense was not built on takeaways necessarily. It was built on incompletions, because when you're a blitz-oriented defense, which is what those Jets were, you're forcing the QB to throw off schedule, but you're also sending bodies at him. So you don't have the same opportunity to takeaways because you have fewer defenders back in the field reading the QB and able to scoop up the ball. Or also when you're blitzing, you're playing man coverage. So you're not really even watching the QB as a defensive back. You're watching your receiver. So blitz-oriented teams are more about forcing 3-and-outs and incompletions and maybe sack fumbles, but you don't count on those. They're not built on getting takeaways, which I think of as interceptions, because that's really the only thing you can try to manipulate in the NFL. You can force fumbles, but you can't, hey, the plan here is let's get a fumble now. You can't bait someone into a fumble the way you can into an interception. So the Bears last year played a lot of zone defense, 2 deep safeties, disguised zone coverages. That's a great formula for forcing takeaways, especially because you help your cornerbacks by playing those safeties back there. This year under Chuck Pagano, they're going to be a blitzing defense. That's how Pagano plays. That's what he knows. He's had success with it. I don't think it'll produce the same results for the Bears regarding takeaways. And honestly, I don't think their corners are the type of guys you want to ask to play true one-on-one coverage. I think Fuller and Amukamara are very good players, but they're better when they have safeties involved. So I don't think it's a great setup for the Bears this year, to be honest.
So every year we see division winners that end up missing out on the playoffs. So the Bears one of your picks for that?
Yeah, they are one of my picks for that this year. And also, I think the NFC North I think those other 3 teams are exceptionally strong.
The Packers, you think the Lions and the Vikings are all exceptionally strong? You're including the Lions in exceptionally strong?
I think exceptionally in relation to, let's say they're probably the 3rd best team in that division. They're a very strong 3rd best team in the NFC North.
Wow. MMQB's Andy Benoit here on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain filling in. There's another team that you're bigger on than the Lions that I hear. You're buying all in on the Browns. The hype hasn't scared you off.
Yeah, I know, and I didn't expect to either, right? So I have to do the preview magazine for Sports Illustrated, so it's my job to do the predictions. And what I've learned doing that over the last several years is predictions really amount to just guesses. So the responsible thing as an analyst, I feel, is to do projections. How do these teams look at this point? We know they're going to change over the season. We know there will be injuries. We don't know in what way that will impact things. The Browns, to me, I thought, I'm probably going to pick the Steelers. I trust the Steelers. The Browns don't have a weakness, though, and it's not just their offense, which I think is constructed well. I think those guys fit together. Their defense got better this offseason as well. So I am buying the Browns just because I think that's what the responsible analyst in me needs to do.
Hold on. Let me play devil's advocate with you, Andy, okay? Let me see if I can point out some weaknesses. Okay, first, here I'll give you 3 concerns about the Browns. Let's work through these together really quickly. First, for all the talk about the weapons, and they undoubtedly have it, and I believe in the quarterback, the offensive line is got to be a little concerning. I think one of the rankings is Pro Football Focus or somebody has the offensive line ranked 30th. They traded away Zeitler to the Giants for Olivier Vernon. If the Browns offense is going to sing, it's going to have to start with some protection, and that's at least an unknown.
I agree with you. And one of the things I wrote is that I think Greg Robinson, their left tackle, is potentially one of the most talked about left tackles in the NFL this year, because if the Browns do struggle, I can all but guarantee you he's going to be a part of it. He has been a very, very unreliable player for the bulk of his career. He overachieved last year in Cleveland, coming off the bench late in the year, taking that job. And I had a coach tell me years ago, it always stuck with me, Will, your plan cannot be to catch lightning in a bottle twice with a guy. There are a lot of years of Greg Robinson's film that says he's not a very alert pass protector and he doesn't move very well. So it's a tough spot for the Browns because here they have all these weapons. They got a great young QB, and they're going to have potentially a glaring weakness on the O-line, which tells defenses how to scheme against them.
So let me give you my other 2 reasons that we should maybe be concerned about the Browns. I'll give them both to you so you can respond. The second is we saw a half a season of really good offensive play from Freddie Kitchens and Baker Mayfield. It's a half a season that the league does have some time to adjust to, and we don't know what Freddie Kitchens, as both a coach and honestly as a coordinator, because he jumped up 2 notches here pretty quick over a full season looks like. That's number 2. And number 3, we were just talking about turnovers, right? And how those vary from year to year. And we talked about the Bears. But the Browns are right up there, man. They had 31 takeaways last year. That was up from 6 the year before. And I recognize they've added a lot of talent. But I don't know, man. If that defense doesn't continue to take the ball away, are the Browns going to be what we hope?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So the Browns did have a few games where they had an unusually high number of turnovers. So the 31, it's not like they were taking the ball away at the highest of levels every week. It was concentrated on a few games. But I hear you on that. And yes, Freddie Kitchens is a bit of a mystery. We probably need to have this conversation another time, Will. I'm a pretty big Baker Mayfield believer, though, and I did not think I would be. But that's a guy I would love to have as my quarterback.
I'm with you. I'm and that's coming in front. This everybody yells homer at me and that I'm not objective. I'm a Longhorn fan, for God's sake, and I believe in Baker Mayfield. So, but man, maybe it's just my constitution that when I see everybody jump a certain way, I start looking the other. I just feel like the Browns hype is. And look, the only time I ever flirted with sports bigamy was when I was and the Cowboys were awful in the 80s. I was like, I need something else to root for. I rooted for the Browns, not against the Cowboys, but just, to give me something else. So I had a Kosar jersey. Hell, but I got to tell you, the hype is starting to scare me on the Browns. The hype is really scary.
Yeah, no, it scares me too. Again, I thought, well, I have to project them because they do look like the best, but trust me, I am as uneasy as you are about it.
All right, man. All right, thanks, man. It's always fun talking to you. It's Andy Benoit of the MMQB.
All right, thanks, Will.
Andy's on the Shell Pennzoil. He's on the was brought to us by the new Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline, now with 4 levels of defense against gunk, wear, corrosion, and friction. All right, the phone lines are lit up. You want to get in on this quarterback talk, but I'm going to get to you, I promise. But I told you something a week ago here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, right? I know how this works. Like, oh, Will, you're so crazy. Remember what I said last week about home? I gave you this whole big spiel about home, right? About how Kawhi Leonard went home, Paul George went home, Kevin Durant went to the home of his business, LeBron went to the home of his business. That was after going home. Home, the overriding motivator for a lot of these guys recently in the NBA on where they pick their future destination. I laid out for you. Anthony Davis is only committed for 1 year. Well, guess what? He's addressed it. And he's addressed some places that he might be willing to play. And guess what he said something about? Home. That's coming up next on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain.
The Stephen A. Smith Show.
And who's going to bring what to the table to see how they all mesh? Nobody knows, man. How's it going to mesh? You're talking about sacrifice? And then perhaps most concerning of all, I'm definitely excited about Kevin for sure. Oh, how's that going to land with Kyrie? Is there favoritism, even realistic favoritism? There should be favoritism. Does Kyrie know that? Does Kyrie believe that? Kyrie is a risk. We have to acknowledge it. And Ramona Shelburne, ESPN's NBA Insider, has talked about it.
If you are a cynic, you could argue that Kyrie Irving, who did not work and play well with a young team that had a nice culture in Boston, that team could have some chemistry issues before Kevin ever sets foot on a court, before he ever comes back. I don't know. I really don't. It's like Kevin's going to be gone a whole year. Is he even going to be there? Or is he going to be rehabbing in New York? Is he going to go to Germany? Is he gonna, we don't, how much are they even going to be together that whole first year?
Kyrie is a risk. So who took on the bigger risk? They both needed to make the deal. The Nets and the Lakers, you did what you had to do, and nobody's second-guessing it. But even if you buy a home, you need to ask yourself, hey, will this home appreciate? What's the crime rate like? Who are the neighbors? What are the local taxes like? What's the school district like? You need to ask yourself tough questions. Acknowledge the risks out there. In the end, you'd still buy the home. But you got to go through the analysis. You got to be real with yourself. And the Nets and the Lakers need to be real about the risks they just took on. Is AD there for only 1 year? Will Kyrie mess up the chemistry in Brooklyn? Can Kyrie and KD figure out leadership? For my money, the biggest risk was taken by Los Angeles and taking on AD for only 1 year. And that is because of the price paid. Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and picks into the future. Think about the downside. If AD doesn't stay, if the most pessimistic outcomes do come true, that franchise is handicapped for far into the future. The price paid was much bigger. If all the pessimism and worst case scenarios come true in the Nets, they still have a young base of talent to work around.
obviously very talented. Do we like the leadership and makeup at the top of the Nets if they feature a Kevin Durant and a Kyrie Irving?
Brooklyn side, they're only interested in Kyrie Irving if Kevin Durant comes along. It's like you're inviting a friend, but you really want them to bring that other friend.
As intriguing as the possibility of them pairing up in Brooklyn is, just how long would it take the relationship to implode?
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
You know, they say if you drip water on a rock, given time, the water wins, right? The water will crack the rock. I'll tell you 3 things over time. Over time, you're going to figure out the things I say aren't crazy or hot takes, but they're going to come true. Over time, I, like a fungus, am going to grow on you, and you're going to like me. And over time, I'm going to win this Dak Prescott debate. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. You can normally catch me 3 to 6 Eastern, all those same television and radio channels. So just to illustrate that over time, all those things come true. Last week, I told you about this concept of home. Like, watch what's happening in NBA free agency. And there's an overriding motivation that we can pick up on. Guys choosing to go home. Kyrie went to Brooklyn, went home. Kawhi went to LA, went home. Paul George went to LA, went home. All enough free agency through a forced trade. LeBron one time went home to Cleveland, but then now, as a Laker, went to the home of his business, as did KD just now in New York. And more often, we can see guys prioritizing home, even sometimes at the expense of the money, taking less money. Kawhi Leonard has given up who knows how much money to eventually end up in LA. When LeBron James joined the Miami Heat, we all sat back at that time and looked at the different motivations and said, you know what? Whether or not you're in basketball or anything else, playing with your friends, being around people you like is a great motivation for people. So being with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, one of the things that motivated LeBron James, but ultimately came back the concept of home. I'm not telling you every free agent chooses to go play where they grew up, but often, and lately, more often than not, it seems to be a guiding motivation. Now, I brought you this entire concept. I brought up this discussion in relation to Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis is a Los Angeles Laker for 1 year. He's committed for 1 year. Remember now, we talked about this last week. It's probable he's going to end up with the Lakers, stay with the Lakers. Rich Paul, Clutch, LeBron James. He's been guiding his way to the Lakers for quite some time. It's probable that Anthony Davis signs an extension to stay with the Lakers, but he's been very, very, very clear. He and Rich Paul. He's going to unrestricted free agency. Right now, it's a 1 year commitment. So I said, could home play a role with Anthony Davis? Now, last week when I told you that, all the reports were from Brian Windhorst and others. Some 6 months ago, Anthony Davis didn't want to go to Chicago, where he grew up, didn't want to play with the Bulls. But then, just yesterday, over the weekend, this came out from the Chicago Tribune, speaking to Anthony Davis. This quote, I mean, this is definitely my hometown, Davis said to Chicago Tribune. If the opportunity ever presents itself, and when that time comes, I'd definitely consider it. That was Anthony Davis speaking of returning to Chicago and playing for the Chicago Bulls. Over time, you realize I'm not just saying stuff, but this all adds up. It makes sense. And I'm not telling you Anthony Davis will be a Bull, but I am telling you I'm not just pulling stuff out of thin air. Tell you something on Wednesday, news comes on Sunday. The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, protecting commercial vehicles and offering specialized coverages designed to protect small business. More at progressivecommercial.com. Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. Let me hit up the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Let me talk to Gene in Pennsylvania. What's up, Gene? Gene dropped. So we go to Dylan in Dallas. What's up, Dylan?
Hey, how's it going, Will?
What's up, man?
All right. Your 2019-2020 MVP is going to be Baker Mayfield. The Browns are going to be insane this year. Look at the weapons: Odell, Landry. You got the tight end, and don't forget about Kareem Hunt coming in hot week 10. The playoff push is going to be real, but that's not really what I wanted to talk about. We got a little bit of talk about Zeke not going to training camp. It smells like me what it smells like is Dak is going to get paid. Cooper is going to get paid. Zeke, I don't know. They just drafted a new running back out of Ohio State, too. I don't know about that. What you think?
All right, Dylan, thanks for the call. I like while he's sniffing throughout the call, he's telling me what something smells like. I think that the Zeke Elliott situation, and there is no situation right now, is he going to hold out? Is he going to show up for training camp? No one knows. Reports are Zeke doesn't even know. I think that it's actually really hard to figure out where the leverage lies. The Dallas Cowboys have control over Ezekiel Elliott for almost 4 years going forward. He's under contract for 2. Then you got a franchise tag for 2 more years. They really have him locked up for 4 years. But at the same time, they need to win now. Dak Prescott needs to prove me and others right. He's going to need his running back. They're in their window to compete for a title, and Zeke Elliott's never been better, never had a higher value. And on top of all that, how about this? This is Jason Garrett's prove-it year, his goodbye year. I think Jason Garrett doesn't want Zeke Elliott, so if Zeke Elliott does hold out, pressure will mount on everyone involved in that organization. Let me go to Drew in Jersey. What's up, Drew? You're on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain.
How you doing, Will?
I'm good, man.
I want to talk about the Browns, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Listen, they're young, and I think they're going to take some falls, but I feel like they're going to be great. I think they got a chance of winning the Super Bowl.
All right, Drew.
Kareem Hunt's going to come in hot week 10, and I feel like they're going to be great up until then, and then once he comes, it's just going to be great little to the program. They're going to be good.
All right, Drew. I'll count you and our buddy from Dallas, and you're part of that Browns bandwagon, that part of that Browns hype. I got it. There's a lot. I got it. All right, I got more calls I want to get to in just a moment here on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain, but I want to move to golf for a minute because I wanted to tell you something about this weekend with the Open Championship. I don't know if any of you guys got to watch that over in Northern Ireland, but some pretty fascinating stuff that came out of it. Shane Lowry won, and he basically led the tournament for the last 2 days, at least. I can't remember exactly when he took the lead, but he was the best golfer from start to finish at the Open Championship. But the guy that I'm fascinated with at this point is Brooks Koepka. Brooks Koepka just finished in the top 5 of the 4 majors in a year, and he is only the 5th golfer to do that. Jack Nicklaus did that, top 5 finishes in all 4 majors in a calendar year. Tiger Woods, Jordan Spieth, and Ricky Fowler. Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods did it twice. What I'm fascinated about Brooks Koepka is the way he plays. Koepka plays fast, and he doesn't like people playing slow. And can you imagine the pairing with J.B. Holmes yesterday, who was one of the slowest players on the tour? Now you got one of the fastest and one of the slowest together, and the pressure they're putting on each other. Think about playing with somebody you just don't like their style of play. Koepka comes out 4 straight bogeys. And Holmes falls apart. Just has a horrendous afternoon. He goes from, I think he was in 2nd or 3rd position going into the day, and I think he played what did he end up? Plus 10 or more on the day? Can you imagine playing golf with somebody who's always like, come on. Just against your every inclination. You want to take your time. And somebody's like pointing at a non-existent watch. Apparently that's what Brooks Koepka did to like a rules official, pointed to a non-existent watch. I mean, Holmes had to be just all in his own head. The presence of Koepka everywhere. And this is what Brooks Koepka had to say about the slow play.
We're on pace for 13 holes, but I mean, if I'm in the group, we're going to be on pace no matter what. So I'm usually ready to go as soon as the guy's ball is coming down. No, I just always play I'm ready to go most of the time. That's what I don't understand. When it's your turn to hit, your glove's not on, and then you start thinking about it. That's where the problem lies. It's not that he takes that long. It's just he doesn't do anything until it's his turn. That's the frustrating part. But he's not the only one that does it out here.
Brooks Koepka, man, he puts pressure on you, and it's not just on how good he's going to play. He puts pressure on you to get up and get down. Let's play. By the way, it was pushed up, the tournament this weekend, especially on Sunday because of weather. I love waking up and having sports right off the bat. kind of a soccer fan in addition to all these American sports. I love the English Premier League. I love waking up on Saturday and Sunday mornings with my boys and having sports right away. There's no pressure. Drink your coffee, read the paper. Sports right away. I live on the East Coast now, man. Everything is so late. You got to stay up forever. Maybe I should move to the West Coast. I always used to think that was weird. I grew up in Texas, and Central Time Zone seemed perfect. You know, you got out of church at noon, and then kickoff was right after that, right about there. The preacher knew, hey, don't let the sermon go long. The Cowboys are playing at noon today. I always thought that was perfect. You know, you had a noon game and a 3 o'clock game. Now I'm on the East, and it's a 1 and a 4. But the more I'm thinking about it, because of like this English golf and this English soccer, maybe California is the place to be. You wake up, and you got sports right off the bat, right there in the morning. And then you got your afternoon to go do what you're going to do. Be out there in the sun. We need to put a little pressure on sports like Koepka. I love that quote. When it's your turn to hit, your glove is not on, then you start thinking about it, that's where the problem lies. It's not that he takes that long, it's that he's not ready when his turn comes up. Brooks Koepka telling us all, get up, stay on time, play fast. It's Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. Your calls when I come back on ESPN Radio.
Your radio, your computer, your phone.
The Big 12 has decided that the horns down sign will be penalized if done in an intimidating fashion. You guys have all seen this when the Texas Longhorns play, or actually when they don't play sometimes. You'll see people in the crowd, and increasingly you'll see players on the field take the hook 'em horn sign that everybody does who's affiliated with the University of Texas, pinky and forefinger up, making a hook 'em horns and pointing it down. It's a sign of disrespect. It's right there in the face of Longhorns fans and alumni, both of which I am. And apparently college football has had enough of it. First, Greg Burks, the Big 12's coordinator of officials, said that this, and I'm quoting, like any play, there is a degree. Who it's directed at, if they do it in their bench area, we're not going to look at it. It would be like any other celebration foul. So it has to be like any foul we have. Does it rise to the level we need to deal with that? It's a hot topic. I know people want us to be definitive on that, but it's like any touchdown celebration. Is it directed at an opponent or just a celebration with your teammates? So it's like pornography then. Or at least how the Supreme Court try to define obscenity and pornography. I can't tell you what it is, but I know it when I see it. So an official in the Big 12 can't tell you when horns down isn't a penalty, but he'll know it when he sees it. It's a degree thing. Did you do it in an intimidating fashion? Were you trying to show up your opponent? Or are you just having fun? Well, that's weak. It's weak sauce. And it's a gray area, and all it's going to invite is debate and controversy. Some ref decides either is or isn't. It's over the line or it isn't. It's intimidating or it's fun and celebratory. Get out of here with that, man. You can't tell the difference. And that's why you shouldn't be penalizing communication anyway. Look, I'm a Longhorn alumni and a Longhorn fan. Deal with it. Don't deal in victimhood. Don't deal in the false power of being offended.
A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
It's Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. I'll be filling in this week. You can normally catch me 3 to 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News. Let's hit up the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Let's go to Don in Hawaii. What's up, Don? Aloha.
Hey, aloha. What's up, guys?
What's up?
Hey, I just want to let you know, if you want early sports, man, you got to move to Maui. We get football at 7 a.m. The English Premier League comes on like at 4.
Well, who wants to get up at 4, though, Don?
What's that?
Well, who wants to get up at 4? When I was watching the Open, I did think about Hawaii because, Don, I'm going to tell you something. Friday, I'm Pauhana, and I'm headed your way. I'm Maui for about a week and a half. And I was thinking, how would I be doing the Open Championship? Because it was on like at midnight your time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's some of those that come on that time. Yeah, I still stay up for it, but even on Sundays we get our last game of the day on Sunday for football is at 2 p.m. By the time it's over, you still go have a beer, get Maui sunset, go have good dinner.
Where do you live in Maui? Where do you live in Maui?
I live in Napili.
Okay. Well, I'll be right there around you. So maybe we can have a Mai Tai or a beer. Thanks for the call, Don. You get Stephen A. Smith back. I think, is Stephen A. back next week? I don't know if he's back next week. I know that I'm not. And then we're both back for the long haul in August. Let's go to Shane in Idaho. What's up, Shane? You're on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain.
Hey, what's happening, Will?
Hey, man.
Okay, I just want to get straight to it. Got a couple things. I'm a guy, I'm all about facts, just like you. What it is, what's science. All these people calling in, and first, I hate the Cowboys. I do. I'm a diehard Seahawks fan. But all these guys calling in, how ignorant are they? Comparing Mariota, Dalton to what Dak has done.
Thank you.
Dak is, I don't think he's he's not nothing great yet, but he can. And he's won over that place in Dallas. Of course you signed Dak.
Yeah.
How can they even compare these other guys to him? These are ignorant people.
Okay, all right. I like it. Thanks, Shane. All right, man. Appreciate the call. Thanks for hanging on hold and hanging out. All right, let's go to the dude in North Carolina who's on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain. What's up, dude?
Will the Thrill, how you doing, man?
I'm good. What's up?
Oh, I just wanted to call. I agree with you on the Browns. I think they're a lot of sizzle and no pop. But what I wanted to ask you, last week there was a big debate on the Clemson and Bama thing. And I honestly think we're taking Bama. We're taking college football because we got the number one quarterback in the country, Trevor Lawrence. Is there anybody better? I don't think there's anybody better in the NFL, to be honest with you.
Man, I mean, I'm like riding with you, agreeing. No, there's probably not a college quarterback better than Trevor Lawrence. Yep. And then you had to take me right up. You were like Tom Brady. I was like his daughter. Like we were walking along, we were about to jump off the cliff together, and then you jump and yanked me, and now I'm belly flopping into the water because I trusted you for too long, dude. No, Trevor Lawrence isn't the best quarterback playing football. He's not the best quarterback in the NFL.
Will.
Yeah.
Don't make me educate you online on the radio right now.
Go ahead.
I'm your biggest fan.
Yeah, okay, but Trevor Lawrence is better than Patrick Mahomes.
Trevor's going to take the NFL by storm.
And
He's
right now,
make my man Dan Marino forget that he even played football.
Dude, if I said you could have Trevor Lawrence or Patrick Mahomes, who would you take?
Trevor all day and every day.
If I said for this year, for quarterback for the New England Patriots, you could have Tom Brady or Trevor Lawrence, who would you take?
Well, seeing how every time Brady comes to Miami, we slap him, I'm still taking my boy Trevor.
Okay. Well, you're nothing if not faithful, man. All right. Thanks for the call, dude. Thanks for the education as well. All right. That right there is your number one Trevor Lawrence fan in these United States of America. It's been Will Cain filling in for Stephen A.